All right, everybody, welcome back to the rant. We are here to talk about Seton Hall Rutgers game. I guess we have to talk about it. If we don't talk about it, Brian, how will people find out about the Heldridge Hotel? It's our responsibility to fill rooms at the Heldridge Hotel. We are contractually obligated to talk about this game, although I really don't know what to say.
There's not much to say, and I think the most remarkable part of that is that there's still 2.5 months of things not to say.
How are we going to cover this team? That's I mean, it's true. It's true. Like, I'd like to ask the listeners, like, do you really want to listen to us talk about this? It's the same thing every game.
Well, my question is more importantly, how are people going to watch this stuff for
Yeah.
2.5 months? It's like the old. If this was 10 years ago, you'd think, okay, well, this team is going to be bad, but maybe next year, Mark comes back, Chris Newley comes back, they'll be a year better, and there'll be development. And now you're kind of like, one, are they going to come back? And two, do you want them to come back, or do you want Rutgers to get a better, older player in the portal?
Yeah. This is the first year where it's truly been like that in a while, because last year you had Ace and Dylan, and even when you knew they weren't going to make the NCAA tournament, you wanted to watch them. I mean, it was just good. And the years before that, even when the things went off the rails a couple of times, all right, well they were never like just forget it bad. There's always like a hint of a chance, NIT bid, maybe, who knows, there was something to watch. It has been a while since there's been a season like this. And that really is my advice to fans, is just to turn it off. I every game now kind of follows the same pattern. The Seton Hall game, they're down 11-0. They're going to get their ass kicked. Then they have 10 minutes of competent basketball where you're like, okay, I see something here. Defense is playing pretty well. They're getting some okay shots, moving the ball around a little bit. And then that's it. That's all they're capable of doing. And every game, there's a couple of guys, like each game, it rotates. A couple of guys are like, oh, okay. They look pretty good. This game it was Zerno. This game it was Lino Mark. A couple of guys where you think they could be Big Ten players, but never consistently that you can watch a trajectory where you're like, hey, this guy's getting really good. Just the same game every time.
Just to give context of like where this team is, if you go to Bart Torvik, you can kind of manipulate the date of when the data you're looking at. And since the first day of the season, Rutgers is by far the worst high major team in the country. They're 201st. The next closest is Georgia Tech at 172. Oof. Boston College, that also lost to Central Connecticut State, is at 164, and the next closest Big Ten team is Maryland at 151.
So for who's around that at two? Who else is in the 200s? Like, what's the neighborhood?
Sure. Let me take out the filter for high major. So Rutgers is at 201. UC Davis is at 202. Monmouth is at 203, and a spot above Rutgers is American, a team that Rutgers beat. So some
win.
Of this is, I guess so. I guess it's an upset.
Good win.
Some of that is because Rutgers' numbers are really bad after losing by 41 points to Michigan. The Tennessee loss impacted them a lot. But you also have to consider that for every extremely difficult game they had 5 cupcakes, one of which they lost. So you'd think they would balance out. But, yeah. I mean, the issues are just – I mean, we talked about is there anything they do well? There isn't, and there's a lot of things they do really badly. They're 336 nationally in 2-point shooting percentage. They are 311th nationally in 3-point defense. They're 293rd nationally in 3-point shooting rate, as in the amount of threes they take. They are 283rd in defensive rebounding rate. They allow opponents to rebound 34.2% of their own misses. So it's just they don't rebound, they don't defend. They can't shoot really. Well, they can actually. It's worse than that. They can actually shoot at a decent rate from 3. They just don't take enough threes because they can't generate them, and then they can't get to the rim and finish.
I thought that was your best question on Saturday night. Was asking, if you're going to get destroyed inside and you give up 50 points in the paint, how are you not taking, 35 3-pointers to counterbalance that? That's what bad teams do. That's how upsets happen. And you're only taking 15 in this game. Like, they're just not adjusting to the reality, right? Like, and the guys they brought in, where you thought, okay, we were told that Bottleau was going to be someone who's going to be able to hit the shot. We know Grant, Yeah, I'd rather see him. I'd rather see him taking those shots than some of the shots he's taken. Zerno's got a nice shot. These guys can. You're absolutely right. Like, let's see it. Like, run an offense where you're at least giving yourself a chance, because this is not working.
Well, that's the thing. Can they? Can they? I mean, it's the way Steve Pikiell answered that question made it seem like they really didn't have the option to, run an offensive set to free up these guys, right? Like, we've been looking at this for 10 years. I mean, the offense is essentially a guy gets the ball in isolation, dribbles into the paint, and takes a pull-up mid-range jumper, or gets swatted at the rim. We knew Seton Hall had one of the best two-point defenses in the country, and there Rutgers was driving it into the teeth of the defense and getting blocked 7 or 8 times, whatever the number was.
Yeah.
And there was just no – I mean, this game even more than usual. There was just no ball movement, off-ball movement, just screens. Like, they ran one set that I can remember, like looking like they're doing things intentionally, and they got a basket out of it. But for the most part, you just didn't see any intentionality of that exact point where, okay, we're not going to score at the rim. We shouldn't be shooting 17 mid-range jumpers or whatever. Let's just start creating open 3-point shots. But they just can't. They can't. And I think a large part of that is the coaching, right? As we've seen over the past 10 years. And I don't know if they have the players that can create those advantages. You don't have Dylan Harper driving to the rim and creating a ton of attention to open 3-point shots. You have JaMychal Davis and Tariq Francis, which you only really need one guy to guard.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty good bleak summary. I wrote a column about Seton Hall and how they've turned it around in 1 year, and the idea that was at least a glimmer of hope for Rutgers fan. You can turn around quickly. I got a lot of pushback on that column, which is funny because the situation is so dark, and I think people rightly don't think that Steve Pikiell can do what Shaheen Holloway has done, and even with the money, that he would not be able to successfully go into the portal and get a Bud Clark, and win a recruiting battle, outbid someone for Hines, who's a really nice big man. I don't know if he's going to be on the team next year, but he's a really nice big man. To do this, to admit, to build a team with your identity, to have an identity, you have a concept about it. And Shaheen Holloway has really done a good job with it. And if you talk to guys around that team more, like Jerry Carino, had to really adjust his thinking to do it. Like, this wasn't just like, hey, let's give you more money, Shah, you're going to be great. It was like, all right, what I was doing was wrong. I was going into the portal and I was recruiting guys that I missed out on the first time, right? Instead of just recruiting the best guys. Like, and it was very interesting, and I didn't know this about it. I always follow Seton Hall, through Rutgers for the most part now. It just required a change of thinking. It required more resources, commitment from the university, and a coach who was capable of pulling it all together. It is more than just money, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, but money plays a part in it, because when you have half of the budget they had this year, most of your options are those guys that you missed out in high school, or familiar names. I do agree that if Rutgers is going to turn this thing around under Steve Pikiell, he has to change a lot, right? He's been the same coach with the same philosophy, recruiting wise and coaching wise, for 10 years. They're going to have to. I mean, look at this team. One transfer they got was Darren Buchanan, a guy they missed out on high school. Another one is By Fall, another kid they missed out in high school. Another is Tariq Francis, who is a family friend of Brandon Knight, his assistant coach. Those are your 3 transfers. Am I missing one other transfer off the top of my head?
By Fall.
No, I said that. By Fall and Darren Buchanan are high school misses they got. Yep. And Francis. That can't be it. That can't be it. And maybe I guess the quintessential question is this: would that been the portal haul if he had another $2 million to work with? I don't know that. You would hope that it wouldn't be. Now that's the question. If Kelly's in the administration, get him more money to work with, and he has the same type of haul next year, that is an alarming trend of stubbornness and inability to adjust. And the other question is he going to allow input from Rob Sullivan, the GM, the guy you're paying $300,000 to, yes, raise money, but he was a Dobo and GM at St. Joseph's, and you would think helps build their roster. Is he going to have some input in this? And I think, again, we agree that he's going to come back next year. I think that another part of this, along with the recruiting the roster, he's going to have to change the people around him. He's going to have to finally fire somebody, and he's going to have to add a coach who could at least attempt to coach some creative offense, who can attempt to elevate. Maybe they don't have the most talented team in the Big Ten, but they can have a guy who can create things, because as we've seen Saturday, and again for the last 10 years, there's not really much creativity with the offense, and that despite that, Steve Pikiell's kept the same staff, and it's just incredible looking back at what he told us after they lost in the Big Ten tournament, that one of his main goals was keeping the staff together because
Right.
people are coming out of staff. Who is trying to poach the staff? I have no idea. But if they are, you should let them go.
Yeah, and that's it. I think that's yeah, and that's gonna be. We're still incredible. Think we're still 2 months away from that, 3 months away from that. But there's gonna be some fascinating conversations, and we're gonna learn a lot about Kelly's Inn to see if that's if Steve Pikiell is definitely coming back, and we all think he is, and I do wonder if there's going to be a point where they come out and where Kelly's Inn comes out and says, "Hey, look, we've got it. We doing the same thing we're doing with football. We're going to give Steve Pikiell the resources to build a roster. It hasn't been fair. It's the same. It's the same situation. If they're going to say that, like they said about Greg Schiano before the season got started, right? Like they were saying, Greg Schiano's been the greatest coach per capita in the country. That's before he went 5-7. They gave him cover for the rest of the year. There was no pressure on him at that point. I wonder if they're going to do that at some point with this team. And Kelly's in, and President Wynn were sitting right behind the bench for most of that game. I think certainly Kelly's in was there for the entire game. I don't know that President Tay got to the end, but it was so they're seeing it firsthand. They know it's bad. They know the situation is bad. They know the situation's worse than football. They have to know that. They have to understand that where the success they've had in football, they're not having any sort of the same thing in basketball. And I'm just wondering if they're going to make a statement at some point about that.
I mean, it's going to get toxic to a point where they might have to, right? Where, if this team again is 2-13 in the Big Ten in February, and people are going to be, asking for blood, I think they might have to kind of do that. We'll see. I just think that the distinction between Greg Schiano and Steve Pikiell can be summed up essentially with this. Greg Schiano has brought the program up, and they've kind of plateaued over the last 3 years, right? Like they reached the Pinstripe Bowl, and then it's been essentially the same season for 3 straight years, where Steve Pikiell reached the peak in 2021, and since then has been just essentially this. So it's a matter of, do you think he's going to be able to bring it back up? And ultimately, do you have a choice? I don't think Kelly's Inn really has much of a choice, unless she does somehow manage to give herself a choice and find the money necessary, that if she wants to make the decision to fire him, she can. Then you're talking about a superstar AD. I don't see that happening. So, but yes, I think probably at some point, if I had to guess, you tell me, if I had to guess, they probably will have to have some sort of vote of confidence deal by the end of the season to kind of calm the waters.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a vote of confidence, but certainly some kind of statement to say, look, we're not satisfied with the results here. Coach Pikiell is the guy who brought this team back to the NCAA tournament. He has not had the resources he's needed to compete. We're going to give that to him this offseason. I understand why fans are frustrated. You can craft the statement, right? Because you're going to start losing paying customers. Like this is what's going to happen next. People are not going to want to watch this. And it was already very striking to me. I don't know if you noticed it and thought the same thing, but I've been in that building where Rutgers fans eat up those tickets, at the Rock, where there have been some years where Seton Hall fans are not excited. It's 11,000 seats, plenty opportunity to get. That was not the case. It was 90% Seton Hall fans. Nobody from Rutgers went to that game, and it's totally understandable. Why would you do it? You already have all the seats. You got tickets down to Piscataway. We have to watch the team play down there. Why would you add another one to it? Telling, very telling. And I think we're going to start seeing now, and I'm curious, 2 home games against Penn, Delaware State. What do those crowds look like? What does it start looking like if they do get off to a 0-7 start, something like that in the Big Ten? It's, I just don't see any way that that's not going to happen. And I'm not trying to be purposely negative here. This is not something we don't want to be talking about this, but what I'm seeing with my own eyes, what I'm watching, it's just not there.
Yes, to say otherwise would be, ignoring reality, throwing sand in people's faces, which we don't do here on the Rutgers Rant podcast. Just looking ahead to the schedule, the Big Ten schedule, right? There are essentially 2 pockets where, Rutgers could steal the 4 or 5 wins that we think they are probably going to get. They open Big Ten play home against Ohio State and Oregon. Oregon more so than Ohio State, but 2 winnable games. And then the following week they host Northwestern. right? So those are 3 games where you got to win at least one. And then in February, you play Maryland, Penn State, Minnesota, Washington, and Maryland again, and then Penn State to end the season. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games where you have to win 3 at least. And then if you look at the rest of the schedule, you're looking at potentially a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game losing streak.
All right. Penn State's 8-3, and they just played a relatively brilliant game against number 9 Michigan State. They lost 76-72. Okay.
Right. And the game before that, they lost by 31 points to Indiana.
Right. Yeah. They're not good, but yeah, they don't seem to be dead team walking. Okay. Well, but you're right. They have to win. They have to beat that team. Maryland is better than Penn State. They're 6-5, but yeah, they've lost, but they're losing to, they got destroyed. The Michigan spanked them, Iowa, Alabama. Yeah, they played a good schedule. So it's hard to say what they are at this point, but yeah, that they've got to win one. You're absolutely right. These are games they got to win.
Maryland went to overtime against Mount St. Mary, so they're not infallible.
I mean, Oregon, I don't know.
Oregon's going cross country. They're going cross country.
5-5. They're on a 5-game losing streak. Auburn, San Diego State, Creighton, USC, UCLA. Okay, not a great team. Sorry, they just beat UC Davis. So UC Davis, of course, ranked ahead of. We just discussed that. Ranked right where Rutgers is. They beat them 104-62.
Look, this is all going to be all about surviving, right? This is all going to be all about not cratering and not having one of the worst years in program history. And I think on the high end, you prevent being the worst team of the Steve Pikiell era, because right now they're trending in that direction. Certainly the least talented team of the Steve Pikiell era, because as Aaron Brightman noted earlier in his wrap-up of the Seton Hall game, at least those first couple teams had Corey Sanders. At least you had that guy. This team, there's no Corey Sanders on this team.
Yeah. I got to tell you this, though. This is one thing that I am not prepared to do here in year 10 of Steve Pikiell, and I know people already, because you see it on Twitter and the small base of people who follow this team, 20% of them want to give out, participation trophies and high fives after close efforts against good teams, or when they do inevitably beat a couple of these teams. I'm just not doing it. Like the standard is not to be 15th in the Big Ten. Like the goal is not to be, at least we weren't the worst team in Steve Pikiell's hit. Like that's not the goal, right? This is year 10. I mean, your Big Ten program, you make $3 million. I'm just not playing that game. And if you're looking for someone to do it, you're not going to get it here. I don't know how much we're going to talk about it because we're just going to be saying the same things again and again and again. But I'm sorry, there's no hugs for this. Like I just see it happening already. It's just going to be people lining up every time they look slightly competent to give them. You go look what they're playing hard. I got that email. I'm like, we're playing hard. Out of your mind? Playing hard? Stop.
They're doing the bare minimum, which I'm not even sure they played that hard, to be frank with you, against Seton Hall.
I don't think so. They got out hustled. Absolutely. The Hines, the big kid, 6'8", 6'10", falling to the floor to get a loose ball at one point. Every hustle play.
Yes. It's going to be a long winter, as we've said. Women's basketball isn't helping out, and I was going to mention this at the end, but wrestling, losing a dual meet, getting upset by Oklahoma in a dual meet you're heavily favored at home.
Upset by Oklahoma, really?
Well, Rutgers was number 12 and Oklahoma was 20. And one of the guys on Oklahoma is Brian Saldano, who wrestled at Rutgers last year. He beats one of his former teammates. So even wrestling, the one of the few programs in this athletic department where you think they could at least be a stabilizing force, they're having a rough winter so far as well. But to Scott Goodale's credit, the only thing that matters is March. So if they have a good NCAA tournament, all this will be forgotten. But I guess my point is that even in the dual season for wrestling, there's nothing really to. It was a rough fall. It was a rough winter. I don't really see anything outside of lacrosse that can make it a good spring. So Kelly Zinn's first year is going to end with a lot of messes to clean up.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. I'm kidding. We've got more stuff to talk about. Talk some. Hey, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's talk about someone else's shit show, Brian. That's a good way to change the channel. It's not that bad here. Look at Michigan. The poster child of the Big Ten, the whole thing, the flagship program. What a mess there. Could be worse. Could have your former head coach sitting in a white box and getting arraigned for breaking and entry, all sorts of crazy crap up there. I'm not making light. I'm obviously can't make light of what happened. It is a very serious situation. Sharon Moore fired. One of these just legitimately shocking stories last week, and you see the first thing pop up on the Twitter feed from Dan Wetzel that he'd been fired. Like what? And then each update just got a little bit more like and certainly hope that he gets his life together. Hope that the victim is in a good place. All that stuff said, it still, I mean, that is a flagship football program now. That has to change coaches after the cycle is done. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there because, on the market for a coach for the second time in 3 years.
It is interesting because the comparison is not apples to apples, but Rutgers had its own similar situation last year. And the dichotomy of how each of them handled it was funny because Michigan outright says in their statement when they fired him, he had an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Whereas Rutgers said, the guy has a heart problem, leave him alone. Then Sharon Moore goes on an absolute tirade, just crashes out to an unbelievable degree. Whereas, Pat Hobbs had the decency to at least go to Ireland and get away from the country for a little while. And then obviously the biggest difference between these two things is that Michigan's scandals have piled up significantly over the last few years. I don't know if you've seen the list. They've also won national titles, have the number one basketball team in the country, have an elite hockey program. So they have scandals, but they win. Whereas you look at Rutgers, pretty long list of scandals as well. They don't win. Yeah. So if you're going to cheat, if you're going to do scandals, my point being you should at least win to alleviate to make it worth it.
They're far more interesting on both levels. Better scandals, better teams at Michigan. I do wonder this, and tell me if I am grasping at straws. Probably grasping at straws. But anyway, work with me for a minute here. Opportunity for stability. Sometimes stability is a bad thing. Might be a bad thing for basketball right now, but I don't think it's a bad thing yet for football. I really don't. So you have a situation now where Michigan is changing coaches at a bad time after by their standards, an okay season. Penn State, had just a crazy search to end up with a good coach, granted, but as part of that, didn't have a recruiting class issue because all of that chaos. Are we looking at a situation where there is an opportunity here for Rutgers with some stability, with an injection of money? To, I don't know, make a little hay, to capitalize on someone else's problems for a change.
Sure. In the sense that Rutgers is better positioned, right? They have been scouring the potential portal targets for months with their newly built front office. They have a coach in place that, kind of has looking under every nook and cranny and has the operation prepared for when the portal opens in January to attack it, right? And then he'll have more resources than he's had in the past. Penn State, the difference between this year and last year, though, is that they hired their coach after a wild search, but they've still had a month until until the portal opens to figure that out, and they have the resources to attack the portal, so they'll have a team, right? And Matt Campbell was probably preparing for the portal for Iowa State as well, so it's not like they're coming to this blind. Michigan is probably the only difference in that. Who knows when they're going to hire a coach? They've already been, Kenny Dillingham said he's not going. Kalen DeBoer said he's not going. I don't know where they go from here. And Rutgers does play Michigan. So that's an opportunity for a win over Michigan. So I guess to the point, yes, stability does help Rutgers in this case. I'm not sure it's going to be – I'm not sure that the chaos is going to cause Penn State and Michigan to have a bad year next year necessarily.
Right. Meanwhile, the one big question that we thought we might have an answer for with Rutgers, the defensive coordinator hire, is still not made. This would have been an opportunity to take care of that ahead of time. We don't have any insight. We have not spoken to Greg Shannon. We will tomorrow. I don't know if we'll have an answer then, if we'll have some more background as to what's going on. We've seen other programs go out and get guys. Syracuse, we talked about last week. Nebraska, get the hot guys on who are out there. Yeah, we are as in the dark about that as you are.
Yeah, and you'd think that look, let's be honest. Greg knew he was going to fire Rob probably after the Oregon game when he took over defensive play calling duties. So you'd think that there'd be, a month and a half head start on looking at potential targets, people he'd want to take over the job, which is to me why I thought they would be more prompt of a search than last year. I don't think it's going to get to the point of where it was last year, because that was, for multiple factors, the bowl game and transfer portal and whatnot, that really dragged on. But you'd have to hope that Greg has someone in place before the last week of the year so that he can focus fully on the portal and pivot that way. I would think that's going to happen. The question to me is, who's it going to be? I don't see any clear-cut names left out there where I think, okay, that guy makes sense. Obviously, we didn't see Rob Smith last year because he was so far down the list of possibilities. But I don't know. Do you have anybody in mind? There's nobody that comes to mind for me.
I don't at this point. I would just be guessing. It's not worth me. They're names. I've seen names. I've read names, and I thought, maybe. But I am, it's just not worth guessing. It just really does feel like if the portal opens without that person hired, it's a mistake. It is a unforced error, as they say. So we'll see. Still got some time for that.
I don't think it's going to happen. But what do you put the likelihood at of Greg Schiano just saying, you know what, I'll call the defense. Don't worry about hiring
Can't
DC.
do it. Oh my God, 0. 2. I can't say 0. 2%. It just doesn't make any sense for all the reasons we've said. He needs to be. They don't have a GM in football because he is the GM. That job is more important. CEO of the fundraiser is even more important. Like that, it just is. Like you can't be coaching the defense as a head coach in the Big Ten in 2025. You just can't. And that's why I think you need your Kirk Shiraka. And it's got to be someone you trust, but also someone with fresh ideas, someone who's not, you're not leaning on just because you've worked with them before. I really do believe that, and I will be disappointed if it's him again situation. But we'll see. All right, this was a good question. This is a good transition because we're talking about changes, and I think it's a good area to get into. Thanks for your questions on the Discord. Discord's gotten a little dark, but please join the Discord, and please, more importantly, if you haven't liked and subscribed our YouTube page, do that right now. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. The guy who does the Devils for us, who's excellent, Ryan Novozinski, he's at 1,300 already. We're the shame of the NJ.com staff because of that. You got to get us to 1,000. Come on, for us. All right, question. Do you have any insight into how Rutgers handles the portal? Is there a football GM who does player evaluations? Do assistant coaches have a say? Does Schiano have the final say? Is it all about money, or does fit matter? And so the first one first, fit always matters for this program. He is very adamant about that. They do not take guys who do not fit their culture. It works. Don't doubt it. It is important. I mean it. It sounds like it's more crazy. Schiano put it on the wall. But no, it's actually a smart thing. Totally believe that he does that for a reason. It avoids some of the headaches that you could have when you take the wrong type of person. I think right now it is Schiano who makes the final decision. I think the staff's involved. But what I've come to understand is they are much more active now than they've ever been in evaluating players before they hit the portal, which has become a key thing to this process. You can't just wait till the portal opens, see 1,000 names, and start going, is he any good? And start trying to do it then. And that's where they're building their staff. That's where they still are a little lacking. But I think they're much more comfortable that when the portal opens, they will have a read on everybody who's in it.
Yeah, they hired a director of college scouting in September or August, and they flushed out that staff a little bit over the course of the season. So they've been preparing for that. Those guys will do the evaluations, I think, and kind of create data for coaches to look at. I don't know the intimate details of the process. I would have to imagine the assistant coaches have their say based on how they view these players, their scouting report. The final say is always Greg Schiano's. Greg Schiano has the final say about over essentially everything to do with Rutgers football. So there's no question there. So yeah, I think they're more prepared than they've been, as you said, in the past. They'll have the data. You don't know who's going to be in the portal exactly, but you can do your homework on guys who you think. You can have conversations. People are always talking college football that maybe this guy isn't officially in the portal yet, right, but he's going to go in. They know a lot more on these staffs than we do as the public. So they should be prepared. They should have more money to work with. And to answer the last question, fit matters for Rutgers. For the players picking the programs, the money matters more than anything.
Yeah.
That there's no now. If you can match money, and then you're talking about, let's say for example, the guys at Rutgers that they're trying to bring back, KJ Duff, Antoine Raymond, etc. If Rutgers is in the same ballpark money wise as the other teams trying to poach them, then that's where fit, comfortability, proximity to home, those factors matter.
Yes. And the known commodity, knowing that the coach is honest with you, knowing you're going to get the playing time you expect. I think there is a risk in entering the portal and someone telling, "Oh, you're our guy," and then you're the number 4 receiver. Like that could happen to a KJ Duff, as good as he is. He knows he's going to get the ball thrown to him 10 times a game here. Like stuff like that. I do think if the people around them are smart, they understand that. So it is certainly, you're right. Money is one, but 1A or close to is also trust and understanding the time you're going to get, your role. So you get evaluated for the pros. We talked a lot about the defensive staff. Got a couple of good questions about the offensive situation. Is the offensive staff intact? And what is your confident level in Suresh being the guy next year? Is Suresh guaranteed the quarterback next year? Will they bring in a vet? Let's start with the staff part about that. I think so, but these are veteran guys. So these, most of these coaches, this probably or might be their last job, right? Like, I don't know that a lot of the guys, they had to pry a couple of them out of retirement. They sort of, kind of on the money. Like Kirk Shiraka, I think, was considering going to retire a few years ago, unless I'm wrong with the last contract. I think they want to. I think this is their staff. This is the last job for these guys. I have not sensed that there's going to be turnover there. Am I wrong?
I think you're right. Kirk Shiraka has a lot of reasons to stay at Rutgers with his enormous contract. And I think you're right that Greg has even said publicly that I don't know if he joked about keeping Kirk from retiring or something.
Yeah, he did. That's what it was. That's where you're exactly right. Yeah.
That sounds
at the end
familiar.
of last year. Yep.
Dave Brock is signed long-term. He's been a big reason they've developed the wide receivers. Demir Shaw, rising star. He's a guy that if there's anyone on staff, I'd be worried about getting poached. It's him. Yep. James Franklin, is familiar with him. He coached under him, I believe. Matt Rule, he coached under, and he's a rising recruiting star. And I think Rutgers knows that, and they're keen to keep him around. Pat Flaherty, he's an interesting case. He's obviously at that retirement age. He's one of those guys Rutgers pulled out of retirement.
Yeah.
His contract, the last one I have, expired after the season, or expires in February or whatever. I imagine Rutgers wants to bring him back. I would be shocked if they didn't. I think he's coming back. I've received no indication that he won't be. But that's
he's
the only
69.
guy.
So yeah, at that age, you don't know. Yeah.
But he's the kind of guy that I think. What else is he going to do? He's going to sit on his porch and drink a natty light. He's going to want to be on the football field coaching offensive line. So I think.
Porch
but anyway,
nice sometimes.
Sure, but I think the staff will stay intact. The question about Suresh is interesting. I think we all are under the impression that he is the guy. I think if Rutgers does get a quarterback, like in the portal, to be their starter, that's telling of where he is in his development. But I've gotten no indication otherwise that they don't love AJ Suresh. They think he's the future of the program and that he's going to be the next quarterback. I don't know if you've heard anything different, but to me,
I have not. But I fully expect there will be a veteran quarterback in that room. I just don't see a scenario where you can head into a season with that with essentially, a handful of snaps against Norfolk State. I just don't see that as possible. I mean, I could be wrong. We will see. I just don't think he will do that. As much as they like him, I just don't think so. But we'll find out. All right, some more questions. We'll take some hoops questions. Couple of good hoops questions. This is a good actual basketball question, Brian. Are you ready?
I don't know.
And it's not. When I get a fire pike. It's not that. All right. Schematically, what's different now between our defense and 3 years ago? Is it purely because we lack Caleb and Cliff level players? And if it's the lack of talent, why is next year going to be better? Other than Harp and Ace, can Pikiell recruit at a Big Ten level roster? Okay, so the question essentially is defense entirely talent, or is there more to it?
Well, look, they don't have the size in the backcourt that they had in past years. Caleb was 6'6". Geo Baker was 6'4". They had guys that were long and tall, as we've talked about ad nauseum. Tariq Francis, JaMychal Davis are shorter than your average guard. And they don't have a rim protecting center. They don't have a guy like Miles Johnson and Cliff Omori that erases any issues in the backcourt. So essentially, to me, the major issue is talent, right? I don't think Steve Pikiell has forgotten how to coach a quality defense. Why will that change next year? In theory, because they'll have more money to buy better players. And he won't make the same mistake again of getting, starting 3 5'11" guards and putting yourself in that position. So again, I don't know if there's intricacies different about this defense. Like, I'm not paying attention, or nor do I know enough about basketball to break that down at a granular level. But I would venture a guess that most of the issues are because this team is the least talented team, least physically imposing team of Steve Pikiell's tenure.
I will agree with that to a point. And this is where I think the analysis is also that it is harder to coach a defense than it is an offense, to get the habits built, to make younger players understand how to play a college defense. Like, they're playing one way with switches and whatnot in high school that you don't have in at the college level. And we saw it last year. We got two of the most talented players that have ever stepped foot in the court. And Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey struggle at times. Like, Ace Bailey made up for it in a million ways because he was just a freak athlete who could get places, but he was often in the wrong place. And Dylan Harper too. Like, he was not a great defensive player. And I think there is some element of that where, if you're with Steve Pikiell for 5 years, like Caleb was, you're going to be better defensively at the end. You're going to be, just physically, A, and then B, you're going to understand his defense. It's the same defense. That hasn't changed. I think that's part of it. But yes, I would agree that talent is number one. So,
counterpoint. Seton Hall has essentially an entirely new roster, right? They flipped. I don't think there's a single guy back that's playing any meaningful minutes. They have the number 12 defense in the country on KenPom. They don't have a guy taller than 6'9", and they have the number 1 block percentage in the country and the number 2 steal percentage in the country. So they got more talented. They got better defensive players. Yeah. And Shaheen Holloway is a brilliant defensive coach. So it's not like Shaheen Holloway had more than 2 months to coach these guys how to play his defense. They just got better players. And sometimes that fixes a lot of ills.
That's a solid counterpoint. I'll give you that. Okay. Is it fair to get one more basketball question from Dan Monchek on the Twitter? Is it fair to give Pikiell another season so the GM concept can take effect? There was some conversations we were having that if you're looking for another reason for hope, it's that maybe somebody else will be doing this. Rob Sullivan. Do you buy into this? That like this is really what this is the saving grace. You're going to bring in someone else who's going to make these decisions, who's going to help this process on the other end.
I mean, if you're looking for justifications, that's a fair justification, I guess. I mean, if we're being completely honest here, the only reason there's really no doubt that he's coming back next year is because of his albatross of a contract that Pat Hobbs gifted him, right? Because if the contract was not what it was, there would be serious conversations, I think, of whether or not he's coming back. But if you want, you can't say that though, right? Like, you can't, if you're someone in power at Rutgers that wants to justify the decision to bring him back, you can't just be like, what do you want me to do? Pay $20 million? I don't got the money to do that. So you got to use other reasons, like he didn't have NIL money in the past, and now we have a GM that'll raise that money and help him build the roster. Again, the GM question is Rob Sullivan going to have any input on the roster next year? I have my doubts based on what I've my conversations and kind of just my sense of how this program operates. Because if he doesn't have any say, that justification really has no teeth.
Yeah. And it is a lot to ask to expect him to come in and have that sort of impact immediately. So no, that's another thing, but I don't know. It's another voice in the room. He certainly did seem to do a good job at St. Joe's. There's some hope there. People thought he was a competent guy. He's also doing the women's basketball team. It's a lot.
I forgot about that. I forgot he's doing that.
Got a second job.
My God.
So keep that in mind too.
Only
it's true. It's true. Yeah, it is. All right. I don't know if we have any other. Oh, we do have one more question. You ready for this one? Why didn't Brian give us your thoughts on the World Cup draw? Hang on for a minute. You get started. I'm going to go over here and my cup of coffee.
Take a nap. I thought the U.S. had a pretty accessible group. I think Paraguay's better. I think Australia's worse. But ultimately, I think they should move on to the next round.
We're not better than Paraguay? Come on.
I mean, Paraguay's been playing soccer for 1,000 years. Like,
how many people are in Paraguay? I'm going to Google this. Paraguay.
I think the it's a bummer that Portugal's not playing on the East Coast. I was hoping to cover at least one game here at. I guess I'll have to wait for the final.
There are fewer people in Paraguay than New Jersey. There's 7 million people in Paraguay. They're better at soccer than us. Come on.
Well, there's probably more good soccer players in Paraguay than in the entire United States.
Paraguay's way down there.
Paraguay's in South America. Yeah, this is the beauty of the World Cup.
I thought it was like close to Venezuela, but no, it is below Brazil. Okay, go on. I'm sorry. I'm now up to speed on Paraguay. You can continue.
You can go into Australia if you want. If you want to go into the Australia geography and all that stuff, we can do that as well. That's the fun.
Other side. Yep.
Yes.
Got it.
This is the fun of the World Cup, is you learn about countries that you haven't thought about in 4 years since the last World Cup. Yeah, I don't know. I think I thought the World Cup draw show was a disgrace. It made the NCAA selection show look like an Emmy Award-winning programming.
See, I loved it because of that very reason. It was so cringy. It was outstanding TV. If it had been any worse, it would have been better. Put it that way. It was just great. Wayne Gretzky pronouncing the names of the countries. It was just, I mean, come on. That was
Curacao. It's like Curacao.
Caraco. What do you call it? I forgot.
That's it. That's exactly it. Anyway, yeah, we can talk about World Cup on the Discord if you guys want to hear my actual soccer opinions. But otherwise, I appreciate people caring. That's very nice of you.
No, we're gonna have nothing else this summer. This might become a World Cup podcast. I'll be covering some soccer. I'm excited. I can't wait. We got a list of story ideas. I sent an email to Alexi Lawless to see if he'll, let me do a profile of him, since he's kind of New Jersey's. He'd be the biggest name out there from New Jersey and involved in this. We've got a couple of guys, right? We got the goaltender. We got like a couple of Brendan Aronson. Look at that. I just pulled a soccer player's name out of my hat. We got some Jersey guys involved, right?
Sure. And we have other interesting guys that aren't from New Jersey, right? Like Kristen Pulisic is from the Jersey area, right? I think he's from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Yep. That's close enough. We can claim him to be our guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it should be interesting. It should be interesting to see how the reaction will be in this country to soccer. Like, it's not going to be 1994, obviously, because the world is different and people in the United States know about soccer, but will this be an opportunity for the country to embrace the sport again?
I think absolutely. I think it's going to be madness. I think it's going to be a soccer fever. I don't think there's any question. Yeah, and especially around here. And what I love about it, and I think it's going to be, these teams are going to be training. It's training at Rutgers. They could be staying at the Eldredge Hotel. Could have like Brazil. You could have
Scotland
at the Eldredge. Yeah.
Brazil playing in Newark or playing in New Jersey. Ferry Street is going to be an absolute madhouse for a couple of weeks. I mean, make your way over there, have some Rodizio and Guaraná. It's going to be incredible.
Now, which of the as a Portuguese person, which of the teams do you dislike? I mean, you once colonized Brazil. Shouldn't you take their success as your success? I mean, they wouldn't be speaking Portuguese if not for your invaders, the 15th century, 14th century. When was it?
I think you're right, 15th century. From a soccer standpoint, right? Nothing against the public of these countries. If you're listening to this podcast and you're of these nationalities, no offense to you personally. I hate the Brazilian national team. Spain, France, can't stand France. I don't mind Germany, but they always beat us, so it's not good. So those countries for the most part. Oh, and of all, the ones I hate the most is Argentina. I really don't want Argentina to win. But if they win all their games to the quarterfinals and Portugal wins all their games to the quarterfinals, we'll have Portugal, Argentina, Messi versus Ronaldo, the game to end all games. That would either be one of the most exciting wins of my life as a fan or one of the most depressing days I will ever live.
Who is the pre-tournament favorite? Is it Argentina, France? Who do you got?
Great question. Are you asking me or are you asking FanDuel?
I don't know. I just assumed you'd know. I'm asking you. But if you need to Google it, go ahead.
I'm Googling right now on DraftKings. It's the first one. We don't have a sponsorship, so we can Google whatever sportsbook we want.
What is the Eldredge Hotel odds? Let me call the front desk. Guys, who do you got? See if Chris Palladino wants to weigh in. Who you got, Chris?
So the BetMGM has Spain plus 400, England plus 600, France, Brazil, Argentina, then Portugal, then Germany.
Wow.
I guess Spain is probably the right pick, but who knows?
From what I understand, England doesn't win very often. I'm a little surprised by that.
Not since 1966.
Wow.
But it's coming home, Steve. It's coming home. All right, that's enough soccer talk. Even I'm all soccered out at this
I'm going
point.
to see how long you're going to let me go on this. Yeah.
Well, people have tuned out by now, so let's.
Tune down the moment we started talking about the basketball team. You think you think they got to a soccer conversation? They turned it on. They're like, oh no, they're not going to talk about this. Okay. Yeah, this is gonna forget it. Listen to this podcast.
I think people are at a point where people listen for two reasons. They're really, really happy that their team won, or they're furious that their team is bad and they want to have like a catharsis therapy session. We didn't give them that. We didn't go scorched earth, but I think people.
It is what it is. How can you get scorched at a certain point? It's like, all right, that's it. You know, could be angry about it, could be mad. I'm not going to change anything. It's just you've seen it.
Scorched earth was after last season, and the expectation was this team was going to be bad, and they're bad, right? It's
right. Yes, there could still be some scorched earth moments. I predict there would be. We could have a couple of podcasts if it is like not just if it's not just it's bad. If it's like holy shit bad, we could. Yeah, this podcast could get darker.
If it's Eddie Jordan bad, which losing to Seton Hall by the biggest margin since the Eddie Jordan era is not a great omen. I got to say, anytime you have Eddie Jordan in the vicinity of description of your program, that's not a great sign. Eddie Jordan as a player, to be clear, or as his coach, not as.
If Steve Pikiell comes in and says he doesn't coach rebounding, then we'll know.
Well, that's the thing. He's the anti-Eddie Jordan in that sense, but I don't know. Maybe he's a miracle worker and he gets Seton Hall home and home, gets his wish done, and that's another thing. That clip of Shaheen Holloway reacting to that went viral.
Did it?
Yes, you don't want to go viral as the butt of the joke either. So nothing.
He
is
won
really
the press
going
conference too. Yeah, that was good. All right, let's stop there. We've talked enough. I don't know when we'll be back. We're back eventually. Holidays are coming up too, so we shall see. Thanks for listening. See you soon.